Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Atlantic Council President and CEO, Fred Kemp.
So, wow, please give it up to the American Pops Orchestra and Maestro Luke Pullen. I was going to say this is the first time that the Atlantic Council in its 60-year history has had a live orchestra on stage, but they're actually above stage. There they are. And it's the best walk-up music I've had in the 10 Atlantic Council Global Citizen Awards that we've staged previously. This is our 11th after 2 years off, and I can see just through getting people to their seats and getting the conversations you're having, we're hungry. We haven't been at this dinner. This is the first time in 3 years that we've staged this dinner. So Some Enchanted Evening. The tune is from 1949, South Pacific, the Rodgers and Hammerstein musical. Andrew Lloyd Webber, who knows something about these things, called it the greatest song ever written for a musical. So Luke, his orchestra, our producer Robert Pullen of Nouveau Productions, and our director of signature events, Lauren Holland, and all the rest of the amazing Atlantic Council team that many of you know so well through the work you do together with us, will give you a few more surprises this evening, connecting Broadway to Cipriani Wall Street, and through you to all the rest of the world. Sadly, there's nothing enchanted about the global challenges we face, adding up to one of the more volatile moments in our organization's 60-year history. Putin's war in Ukraine is in its 7th murderous month. Inflation and recession are biting. Climate threats and cyber risks are proliferating. The Atlantic Council doesn't ever despair at challenges. Rather, working alongside all of you, we seek solutions. As our mission statement promises, we exist to shape a better future together with partners and allies. Now, many of you today watched the funeral of Queen Elizabeth II. I talked to the ambassador from the UK, Dame Karen Pierce, who I'm just delighted has taken time to be with us this evening after such a historic day. Dame Karen, if you could stand so we could all applaud you. I think the words I heard today were somber celebration. I've seldom heard those words together so often because it was somber, but it was also a celebration. And I talked to the ambassador before coming out here. Why is it that so much of the world has stopped today? Why is it in so many major cities of the world, just spontaneously people are putting on their own recognitions and looking after this time? And I think we sort of agreed that there was a hunger for the continuity that she represented. But it's not just a continuity, it's a continuity of purpose. It's the continuity of an institution at a time of volatility that makes us feel anchored. And it is the continuity of purpose and continuity of institution. Now, I would never pretend that the Atlantic Council can replicate that. But certainly the continuity of purpose and the solidity of institution is what we hope we're celebrating here alongside the fact that we're celebrating some quite remarkable honorees, some worthy individuals, and you'll hear in a moment about them from Adrian Arsht, the Executive Vice Chair of our board. At the same time, through your presence and support, you are contributing to the Atlantic Council's purposeful, nonpartisan, values-driven work, driven by the conviction that resourceful individuals and communities like ourselves can and do make a difference. So it's now my honor to introduce the remarkable Adrian Arsht, who embodies so much of what's best about the Atlantic Council. She presides over this dinner as our Executive Vice Chair of the Board, representing all of us at the Atlantic Council, including our Chairman, John Rogers, her fellow Executive Vice Chair, Steve Hadley, all the board members and International Advisory Board members who are here. Adrian is the founder of two centers at the Atlantic Council, the Arsht Latin America Center and the Arsht Rockefeller Foundation and Resilience Center. She is an inspiring businesswoman and philanthropist who makes things happen. It's my honor to introduce and bring to the stage Adrian Arsht.
Hugs are back, especially since I know all of you took a COVID test before you got here. Fred, thank you so very much for your kind words. We are so very grateful to you for all that you do at the Atlantic Council. On behalf of our chairman, John Rogers, members of the Atlantic Council Board, as well as the Council's International Advisory Board, it's a pleasure to welcome you all to the 2022 Global Citizen Awards. I started today at 4 a.m. watching the gathering for Queen Elizabeth's funeral. How many of you in the room were up and doing that? Rarely, if ever, will we have an opportunity to spend 6 hours focused on a great world leader. The ceremony bore witness to centuries of history and tradition. The crowds that lined every street demonstrated in a palpable way what it is to be and to have been a global leader. It's particularly thrilling for me tonight to welcome you all back after our 2-year COVID hiatus. I know that you will agree that this special evening was worth waiting for, but you don't necessarily have to make up and eat twice as much. Tonight, we have the great pleasure of celebrating 5 extraordinary honorees. Google and Alphabet CEO, Sundar Pichai. Don't know where you are, but we'll see you. President of the Republic of Indonesia, Joko Widodo. The 2 newest applicants to join NATO, the Republic of Finland, under the leadership of President Niinisto, and Sweden, under the leadership of Prime Minister Andersson. And as they say, lastly but not leastly, our Academy Award-winning actor, philanthropist, and activist, Forrest Whitaker. These 5 honorees truly embody what it means to be a global citizen. The collective actions have and will continue to impact individuals and communities on a worldwide scale for decades to come. In addition, tonight, we will pay tribute to two extraordinary individuals, one whose tragic death, the former Prime Minister of Japan, Shinzo Abe. And the second, the British monarch, who was for more than 70 years as Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. Evenings like this are so very necessary. They remind us of the importance of global citizenship and how the actions of just one person can impact a generation and indeed the world. So I thank you, all of you, for your support of the Atlantic Council, and thank you for being here tonight.
Russia's illegal and brutal invasion of Ukraine was a watershed moment for Sweden and for Europe. It changed our security situation, and after a careful analysis process with the parties in Parliament, my government, with broad parliamentary support, decided that Sweden should apply for NATO membership. The historical significance of this decision is obvious. Ending 200 years of military non-alignment is not to be done without careful consideration. And the fact that Sweden and Finland are applying for membership simultaneously will reinforce the security for both of us, for the Baltic Sea region, for Europe, and for NATO.
When we talk about security, even if it's not that visible in daily life, it has a huge impact in our minds, and that makes this decision also historic. If you know that you have a secure country to live and build and work, that has an impact to all of your behavior. It gives security of mind.
Please welcome the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Norway, Anniken Huitfeldt.
Good evening. It's a pleasure to be here with you all on this very, very special occasion. And it's a particular honor for me to be celebrating two fellow Nordic countries, two countries that are such strong allies and also friends. To Norway, to their European neighbors, and indeed around the globe. For many decades, Finland and Sweden had foreign policies based on neutrality and non-alignment. Russia's brutal invasion of Ukraine changed this. When Finnish and Swedish ambassadors submitted their letters of application to the NATO headquarters in May, the sentiment in Norway was finally. When Norway took the decision to join NATO back in 1949, our Prime Minister at that time had really hoped he would be accompanied by Sweden and Finland. He hoped to bring the Nordic countries together under the Atlantic Security Guarantee. In fact, the year before, when he did not manage to establish a unified Nordic defense alliance, he got so depressed that he escaped to his cabin in the wood. So his Minister of Defense had to drive out personally to persuade him to come back to Oslo, where actually Prime Minister Churchill was visiting. With this background, it was a special occasion for NATO's Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg, my fellow Norwegian, to receive the applications. Over the past years, Finland and Sweden have been increasingly integrated in NATO exercises. This will allow them to work together with NATO from day one. For Norway, their membership will be an important element in the security architecture in the High North. As a neighbor to Russia, our aim is, as has always been, to maintain low tension in the High North. This is an aim we share with Sweden and Finland. When the terrible war in Ukraine broke out, I spoke to my friends Anne and Pekka, foreign ministers from Sweden and Finland, on a daily basis. And on the first weekend, we all changed our long-standing practice of not supplying weapons to countries at war. Finland and Sweden's membership process is moving quickly forward. Nearly all NATO members have now approved their membership. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight we honor the global citizens. This is a title both Sweden and Finland deserve through their strong and decisive actions. I'm therefore so happy to present this year's Global Citizens Awards to both President Niinistö of Finland and Prime Minister Andersson of Sweden. So please direct your attention to the screen.
Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed members of the Atlantic Council, unfortunately, I can't be there with you, but I want to thank the Atlantic Council for granting me the Global Citizen Award. It is a great honor. For more than 6 decades, the Atlantic Council has worked to strengthen the transatlantic bond. Many who are there tonight have dedicated their life and work to nurturing relations across the Atlantic. The past months have shown that that bond not only remains strong, it is becoming ever stronger. The transatlantic community is unified and unwavering in its support to Ukraine. We will continue to defend our values and the foundational principles of democracy. The mission of the Atlantic Council, shaping the global future together, now has an urgent ring to it. The transatlantic bond has many strands: culture, commerce, security, politics, and more. Preparing for this speech, I tried to think what its essence is for me personally. It has long roots. It's woven from early memories of a young boy in the Finnish countryside in the 1950s, of American sports, music, and movies where good always won over evil. It is a flavor of the ultimate American symbol, Coca-Cola. But most of all, its formation has been guided by literature. From Hemingway to Bellow, from Vonnegut to Auster, from Morrison to Egan, and many others, literature has been my window to understanding the American soul. In my political life, I have always seen it as fundamentally important to Finland to anchor firmly in the transatlantic community. We have long been a close partner of NATO. Now we are taking the next necessary step and becoming an ally. Finland's decision to apply for NATO membership was a true triumph of democracy. In the Finnish parliament, it got a 94% majority. I'm happy to admit that the US Senate did even better with a 95% majority for ratification of Finland and Sweden's membership. I would like to thank all the senators who supported us. Also, to those who have had their doubts, Finland has a reputation of taking its commitments seriously. As a NATO member, we will commit to the security of the whole alliance, to the security of all allies. To paraphrase President Kennedy, we intend to not only ask what NATO can do for us, but what we can do for NATO. Over the years, I have had the pleasure of meeting 5 US presidents. To all of them, my message has been the same. We are interlinked through our values, our economies, and our history, and through our future. Yes, Europe needs the US, but the US also needs Europe. And the world grows more and more insecure and divided. It is imperative that we come even closer together. The economic consequences of the current war underline the need for ever closer cooperation to boost our resilience. We need to take a serious look at our supply chains, dependencies, and critical industries. But we must set our horizons beyond the needs of the moment. Our future competitiveness and national security will be closely tied to emerging technologies like artificial intelligence, quantum computing, and biotechnologies. Technological standardization is already becoming an arena for geopolitical competition. We need to keep up. And we need to ensure that technology will be developed and used in line with our values. Efforts are already underway to increase cooperation among the so-called techno-democracies. This approach has my full support. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to once again thank the Atlantic Council for this honor and for all your efforts to strengthen our transatlantic community, our bond. The historical record is impressive, but the work is far from complete. Let us use this moment to better prepare for future challenges. Shaping our global future together is now more vital than ever. Thank you.
Accepting on behalf of President Niinisto this evening, please welcome Finland's Minister for Foreign Affairs, Pekka Haavisto.
Dear Anniken, my good friend Ann Linde, ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure and honor to receive the Global Citizen Award of the Atlantic Council on behalf of President of the Republic of Finland, Sauli Niinistö. We sincerely appreciate that our President, together with our dear neighbour, Prime Minister Andersson, is receiving the recognition this very year during the transatlantic bond has strengthened in an unprecedented manner. We are dealing with an exceptional crisis that violates the very key norms of our global order. UN Charter is very clear: use of force against the territorial integrity is not acceptable. We all have been deeply impressed by the courage of the Ukrainian people and their determination in defending their own country. Russia's attack caused a ripple effect throughout the neighbourhood. Finland and Sweden have drawn their conclusions. The two nations, with long traditions of independent defence but increasingly close security cooperation with their partners, decided to apply for membership in the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. European and transatlantic partners have acted extremely united during Russia's invasion of Ukraine. We need to remain resilient and keep on strengthening the transatlantic cooperation. We need to maintain and renew the international rules-based system built on the values we share. We truly appreciate the strong support we are receiving from our valued partners, the US and the others. Thank you very much.
Accepting on behalf of Prime Minister Andersson, please welcome Sweden's Minister for Foreign Affairs, Ann Linde.
Dear Anniken, it's Nordic cooperation. It's always a little, here and there, but in the end we always manage to get the best out of it. Dear Anniken, dear Pekka, dear Fred, where are you? He's not here. Well, dear Fred anyway. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for the warm reception. It is my great privilege to accept the Atlantic Council Global Citizen Award on behalf of my Prime Minister, Magdalena Andersson. Prime Minister Andersson is deeply honored to be placed in such a distinguished ranks as those are the part of the present honoraries, including Finnish President Sauli Niinistö. This award is special for many reasons. It reflects some of the finest ideals and aspirations of transatlantic cooperation. It recognizes the pivotal role that the cooperation plays in promoting freedom, peace, and prosperity for everyone in Europe and North America. And it highlights the valuable contribution our close ties can make to shaping the global future. For 60 years, the Atlantic Council has championed these ties through bridge building, intellectual excellence, and leadership. Thank you for recognizing the contribution of Finland and Sweden. This award is a great honor, not only for my Prime Minister, but also for my country. Ladies and gentlemen, for generations, Europeans and Americans have shared many formative experiences. Prime Minister Magdalena Andersson is no exception. As a student here in the United States in the mid-1990s, she benefited early on from the transatlantic spirit. I know that her transatlantic mindset has been a great asset for her as Prime Minister and the first woman to hold Sweden's highest political office. Ladies and gentlemen, after the outbreak of the Second World War, Eleanor Roosevelt famously stated, "This is no ordinary time." Today, we are once again at a critical juncture. Russia's war of aggression against Ukraine reminds us of the darkest days of European history. What it is at stake is not only people's lives and the statehood of Ukraine, but also the entire international system that was created after the Second World War to promote freedom, peace, and prosperity. In times like this, it is good to be among friends. I thank the United States for your impressive support to Ukraine and for your sustained engagement in European security. For Sweden, Russia's aggression against a sovereign and democratic neighbor was a watershed moment. Our decision to apply for NATO membership marks the end of more than 200 years of neutrality and non-alignment. And with Sweden and Finland as members, NATO will also be stronger. We are security providers with sophisticated defense capabilities. We are champions of freedom, peace, and prosperity, and human rights. We have a strong and long-standing partnership with NATO, including participation in all NATO-led missions. And my message is this: you can count on us. Sweden and Finland will continue to be your friends and partners and, once the ratification process is complete, also committed allies. Ladies and gentlemen, over these past few months, we have seen the transatlantic unity at its best. Together, we have responded with strength to Russia's aggression and provided unprecedented support to Ukraine. In Europe, we have made bold decisions to step up cooperation in areas ranging from energy security to sanctions. And we have set the European Union on a new path of enlargement, including by granting Ukraine the status of candidate as well as for Moldova. These steps will also benefit transatlantic cooperation. Ladies and gentlemen, the fabric holding the transatlantic community together is strong. We have shared interests and values and close historical, cultural, and personal ties. And history has taught us that transatlantic cooperation is our best tool for tackling pressing common and global challenges. This is why the tragedy unfolding in Ukraine also offers a glimmer of hope. Putin's aggression has helped revitalize and strengthen the transatlantic relationship at a crucial moment in history. On behalf of my Prime Minister and my country, I would like to express my sincere gratitude to our American friends for your commitment to the transatlantic relationship. And to the Atlantic Council, this award is a testament to the importance of our common transatlantic endeavors. Thank you very much.
Please welcome Chairman and CEO of First Eastern Investment Group and Chairman of the Atlantic Council Global Citizens Awards, Victor L. Chu.
When we talk about a global citizen, we think that he must have a will to rise above his national politics, to promote multi-stakeholder interests to achieve global common good. On July the 8th, Japan lost its longest-serving Prime Minister Abe, in the most unthinkable and unfortunate circumstances. Japan has lost a great leader who provided an extended period of political stability, and the world has lost an effective interlocutor that was willing and able to promote global trade liberalization and global collaboration in security and defense. In 2016, the Atlantic Council was pleased to award Prime Minister Abe our annual Global Citizen Award, and he'll be remembered fondly by our community. Ladies and gentlemen, please pay your attention to the screen.
In a world where trust in leaders is declining, so much declining, we all hope to see more leaders like you who fight for what needs to be done for the country's future and for our global peace and prosperity.
On July 8, 2022, the life of former Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe was cut short in an assassination described by world leaders as despicable, cowardly, and as terrorism. Perhaps one of Prime Minister Abe's greatest accomplishments was his gift of stability and security to the people of Japan. Following a run of 14 consecutive prime ministers, one in office just 64 days, Abe returned to power, immediately bringing a sense of hope, purpose, and possibility to the people of Japan.
Service to his country and his people was in his bones. Even after he stepped down from public office, his focus on his health, he stayed engaged. He cared deeply, and I hold him in great respect.
He was a thoughtful, compassionate, strong leader who understood the importance of service, understood the importance of building a better world, better opportunities for his citizens, but stepping up and getting involved in issues around the world that really, really mattered.
His dedication to serving his country and people will always be remembered as a prime example for all.
2016 Global Citizen Awardee Prime Minister Abe was the longest-serving Prime Minister of Japan, and at 67 years old, his memory will forever live not only in the hearts of the people of Japan, but of those around the world.
Let the two of us, America and Japan, join our hands together and do our best to make the world a better, a much better place to live, a alliance of hope. Together, we can make difference. Thank you so much.
Ladies and gentlemen, Her Majesty the Queen was the finest example of distinguished global citizenship. Her dedication to duty, her unfailing effort to reach out to all sectors of society, whether it's Britain, the Commonwealth, and the rest of the world, really give us the finest example of how each of us can contribute to global harmony, success, and prosperity. And she has done it for 70 years with great humility, common sense, and the highest degree of integrity. I suggest to all of us that we should follow Her Majesty's fine example, and we should remember all her wonderful work and achievements fondly in the many years to come. Ladies and gentlemen, please pay attention to our tribute on the screen.
In a historic reign spanning 70 years, Queen Elizabeth II has presided over marked change at home in the United Kingdom, remaining a steadfast and constant symbol of the country's past, present, and future.
The royal visitors stepped off into the hot sunshine of Nairobi. No one knew then that the girl who had arrived here as Princess Elizabeth would leave again 5 days later as Queen.
She has also been witness and participant to transformative partnerships that have shaped the world today. She represented the United Kingdom with its allies across the Atlantic and around the world, building warm relationships that advance the causes of peace, prosperity, human achievement, and betterment of the common good.
Your Congress and our Parliament are the twin pillars of our civilizations and the chief among the many treasures that we have inherited from our predecessors. We, like you, are staunch believers in the freedom of the individual and the rule of a fair and just law. These principles are shared with our European partners and with the wider Atlantic community. They are the bedrock of the Western world.
Queen Elizabeth II was an extraordinary example of service and selflessness. We salute a remarkable life and the end of an era in British Commonwealth and global history.
When people face a challenge, they sometimes talk about taking a deep breath to find courage or strength. In fact, the word inspire literally means to breathe in. But even with the inspiration of others, it's understandable that we sometimes think the world's problems are so big that we can do little to help. On our own, we cannot end wars or wipe out injustice. But the cumulative impact of thousands of small acts of goodness can be bigger than we imagine.
When I last met the Queen, she asked me, how's Hong Kong doing? And for many of you who have met the Queen, however calm you try to be, you become nervous. And these words came out to me automatically. I said, Your Majesty, the Queen's Road Central in Hong Kong is still called the Queen's Road Central. Nothing has changed. She smiled and approved. So we'll remember the Queen very fondly. Ladies and gentlemen, as we pay tribute to these two extraordinary leaders, please welcome onto the stage the star of Broadway's Aladdin, Michael Maliakel.
Well, I heard there was a secret chord that David played and it pleased the Lord, but you don't really care for music, do you? goes like this: the fourth, the fifth, the minor fall, and the major lift. The baffled king composing hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. Maybe I've been here before. I've seen this room and I've walked this floor. I used to live alone before I knew you. And I've seen your flag on the marble arch. And love is not a victory march. It's a cold and it's a broken hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah.
Ladies and gentlemen, please enjoy your dinner.
Houston, we have a problem.
Find Professor London.
Self-sustained civilization on Mars will be the greatest adventure.
I mean, this stuff has been really wild.
If you decide to accept that, you're gonna seriously fly, son.
Well, thank you very much, Ron. I so appreciate getting to know you this evening. No, thank you, Ron. I really appreciate it. And I want to thank Dina Powell and David McCormick for nominating me so that I can be part of the other honorees this evening. I'm deeply grateful to be here. 25 years ago today, Ron and I embarked upon making a movie called Apollo 13, a movie about 3 astronauts that are designed to go into outer space to get to the moon. It's a failed mission, and it could have been a tragedy. They came back safely, and the world knew they came back safely. Well, I chose to make that as a movie, knowing that the world knew that they were coming back safely. Ron chose to direct it. So the movie exceeded all expectations and did remarkably well financially. It was a huge blockbuster. And then all of a sudden it gets nominated to be for 9 Oscar nominations. And we thought that journey was over when we succeeded at the film. Now we're faced with the Oscars, and which was good news. We got 9 Oscar nominations. Now, every odds maker said Apollo 13 is going to win. I even had financial geniuses unsolicitedly call me and say, Brian, I need to get you on the phone. And I've talked to somebody. One was Mike Milken, who I like a lot. He said, when you win, say these 8 words. I said, well, I can't even talk like this. I mean, I don't know if I'm going to win. He said, every odds says you're going to win. Las Vegas says you're going to win. Every single situation says you're going to win. Okay, now here we are. It's the night of the Oscars. It's the Kodak Theater. All of my peers are there and more. 40 million people are watching the Oscars. So I'm convinced I'm going to win an Oscar. I mean, everyone's told me I'm going to win an Oscar. So I've written a speech. I have it all ready. I've written it by hand, typed it up. It's in my pocket. I know exactly where it is in my pocket. I'm ready to pull it out. And so now it's the final award of the evening, which is for Best Picture. And Sidney Poitier, the esteemed Oscar-winning actor, is the one that's opening that envelope. He's a brilliant actor. He's a very deliberate speaker. He speaks very slowly. He handles the envelope very slowly. I am in the 5th row. I have Ron Howard next to me. On the other side is Tom Hanks, and the actual astronaut, Jim Lovell, is the 4th in. The camera is on me, as it is on the other 5 potential winners. Again, I'm certain. I'm staring. I'm hypnotized by Sidney Poitier as he's opening the envelope. And I'm staring at him, and I'm looking at his mouth. And I see what looks like an imperceptible B for Brian rolling off his lip. So I get out of my chair in front of 40 million people to accept that Oscar. As I'm walking to the podium, and the winner is Braveheart. I couldn't have been worse. It was the most embarrassing thing that I could have ever experienced. Now, thank you. It gets worse. So now, as I'm walking backwards, because I just can't, I'm in a state of shock. Walking backwards, I pivot to sit down, and the first face I see is the chairman of a competitive studio saying, "Loser," to me. I sit in my seat with the loser sign emblazoned upon my forehead. I sit in my seat, and Jim Lovell reaches over Tom Hanks and over Ron Howard and grabs my wrist. And he says, looking me right in the eyes, "I never made it to the moon either." So where I'm leading with this is I'm really thankful to the Atlantic Council for letting me know before the event that I was actually going to be up here with this award. And I'm really, again, super grateful, again, to know in advance, and I am here. There's living proof of it. But the message that I would like to say, and there's some messages that live within that paradigm, but the message that I'd like to say is, that would address this group, is that face-to-face communication is the most important thing we could do. Because when you actually look at somebody as opposed to your phone, or when you travel to another country or to a restaurant locally, and you actually put your phone away and look at the people around you in present time, that is what reality is. And when you look at people, you're immediately validating them as a human being. And therefore, you can relate to each other. And I have learned in another universe, another universe which is making movies, that when you can relate to your protagonist, they can move you. You can move people by reaching their heart, not their mind. So instead of looking at your phone, I have to work on this all the time, whatever it is, but wherever you're going, I think it's important to try to be present. I think by looking at people and communicating and reaching their heart, something special always happens. There's so many things that you gain from it. What I learned by interrupting my comfort zone, meeting leaders, getting to the Kremlin, meeting, unnamed people that what I got to do was realize that we access on similar things, but we learn other people's perspectives. And when you learn other people's perspectives, you tend to like them as opposed to not like them. You tend to understand them instead of wanting to fight them. It's a positive event. So I'm in favor of that. I'm in favor of looking at people, going out of your way to be present with them, the barista, your Uber driver, whatever that is. When you travel, really be in that moment and be generous in that moment and validate people for being people. So the only thing I would leave you with, and again, of course, you see I'm not reading this, I should be, but it occurred to me, and I told Ron only this evening, there was only one common thread that these 1,000 people, from Princess Di to Queen Elizabeth, I could go on, and I just wrote a book called Face to Face, The Art of Human Connection. But the one thing that was in common, I would research every person, I would think about what that would be, and the one thing that was common, I was wrong every single time. Every single time I thought somebody would be fun, they weren't, or they'd be different. In other words, you can't prognosticate or forecast what some other human being is going to be. So my feeling is that is something that I feel like this your organization intersects with, because it's about understanding and creating peace. And so thank you very much for having me this evening.
Klaus, esteemed members of the Atlantic Council, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for bestowing on me one of the Global Citizens Awards for 2019. It is indeed a great honor and a great privilege. I must confess, though, that I'm actually a man of habit and tradition. To give you an example, I was born and raised in the city of The Hague. I still live there, and I have no intention to move anywhere else. So some of my best friends had a hard time picturing me as a trend-setting global citizen. But as you pointed out, Professor Schwab, dear Klaus, this prize is all about strengthening international and especially transatlantic relations. And yes, that is close to my heart. It is a fundamental truth that transatlantic cooperation makes us stronger than when we are apart. And that's not rocket science, but simple common sense, as world history since 1945 has shown. Perhaps the most important lesson I've learned in my years as Prime Minister of one of the world's most outward-looking trading countries is that national interests are often best served by international cooperation. And this is true when it comes to free and fair world trade. It's true in the field of safety and security, with NATO as a prime example, serving the interests of all member states, including the US. But it's also true when we look at the SDGs or at the Paris Climate Agreement. The late Kofi Annan once said, "I'm often asked what can people do to become a good global citizen? And I reply that it begins in your own community." So what we do at home and how we operate abroad are indeed connected. And if we do the right things, the right way, in the right order together, then suddenly 1 + 1 can add up to 3. I had applause here in my text, but you are not responding. Thank you. Now, it's almost a cliché to say that the global balance of power is changing rapidly. But that's the thing with clichés. They are true, and we have to deal with that reality. When I was a guest of this great Atlantic Council in Washington last July, I had the opportunity to speak about this at length. And my key message remains that in today's world, it's in our own interest and in our common interest to keep the transatlantic bond strong and vibrant. Because we need each other to safeguard our democratic and free societies, to protect and bolster free and fair world trade, and last but not least, to make the post-war multilateral system fit for purpose once again. Because the UN, meeting this week here in New York, but also NATO and the WTO, were all grounded on the principles of a bipolar world. A time when there were clear boundaries between East and West and between a first and a third world. And since then, reality has changed. But the underlying system has not evolved to keep up. And that's causing problems and friction. Today, we live in a multipolar and volatile world, a world of shifting coalitions. And it's up to us, the responsible politicians of today, to make sure we respond to this new reality by making all the necessary changes and improvements, but without throwing away out the baby with the bathwater. And I believe this is one of the main tasks we face across the Atlantic region. Ladies and gentlemen, when I heard that the Atlantic Council had been kind enough to make me a global citizen and that the ceremony would take place on Wall Street, my thoughts immediately turned to the Dutch woman whose name is engraved in a 9/11 monument just a few blocks from here. Ingeborg Laribi was only 42 years old when she died on that horrific day that reshaped an era. She truly was a global citizen. Born to Dutch parents, building a life for herself here in New York with friends all over the world. In her obituary in the New York Times, she was eloquently described as native of the Netherlands, citizen of everywhere. It's a thought that should appeal to us all, because wherever we come from, we all gain from an international outlook and an open mind. And so I see this honor not as a lifetime achievement or a lifetime achievement award, but as an incentive prize. Thank you.
will.i.am is a global music artist, creative innovator, entrepreneur, and philanthropist. With the Black Eyed Peas, he's won 7 Grammys and toured the world many times over, performing in more than 60 countries. His Yes We Can music video motivated young voters to propel Barack Obama to the White House.
Give it to me. Hey, be different. Be nice. Just like
Artist, entrepreneur, and philanthropist. A global citizen, will.i.am.
Thank you so much, Your Excellency Omar. Thank you so much, Atlantic Council, for acknowledging the work that we do from our heart. Thank you so much, Professor Klaus Schwab and Hilda, for acknowledging the work that we do and welcome me into the world of the World Economic Forum. Thank you so much. Acknowledgement goes a long way. I come from a very poor neighborhood in East Los Angeles, and kids like me were acknowledged to get a shot towards an education. And somebody had a bright idea a long time ago to send kids from poverty-stricken areas in a bus to a good neighborhood and get an education. I was a recipient of that program and all the folks that fought hard to keep programs like that alive. If I didn't go to school outside of my neighborhood, I don't know what I would have become. My mom thinks and believes, boy, you still would have been you. But it was my mom's courage. Imagine being 27 years old and sending your little one at 7 years old on a bus 2 hours away from home and no car to come pick them up if there was an earthquake living in California. So as I got older, I was like, Mom, why did you send me out when you didn't have a way to pick me up? She said, Willie, what are the odds? An earthquake happening or you getting caught up in a gang or getting shot or getting, in and around the drug activity that was here in the neighborhood? I would pick any day to send you off to Brentwood and Palisades to go to school. And that changed my life. My life changed when I met a person by the name of Dean Kamen. And I realized after I watched a documentary called Waiting for Superman, and that title just crushed my heart because the title suggests that you're waiting for a fictitious character to solve real problems. And my mom went to one of the schools that was highlighted in that film, and that's a school that I would have went to had she not sent me to Brentwood and Park Revere and Palisades. And the movie didn't say waiting for Bill Gates or waiting for Obama or waiting for, Steve Jobs. They said, we're waiting for Superman. And that's sad because Superman doesn't exist, but Superman does exist. It's in people like Dean Kamen and Mark Benioff and Lorraine Powell Jobs. So I asked him, hey, do you mind bringing your program to my neighborhood? And do you mind if I take your college prep program and mix it with this robotics program? And that was, 11 years ago. And since then, we started with 65 kids. Now we have 720 kids. 100% of our kids graduate to go off to four-year colleges, 70% of which go to school for robotics and computer science. And these were failing kids. So for me, I know what it's like being poor. Been there, done that, came out of that. I want to go back to my neighborhood and get the kids booted, suited, ready to go. Because guess what? 2030, coal miners now are drivers, cashiers. All these jobs are going to go away because of the autonomous world and AI. And you know what? We're making AI too. But the kids in my neighborhood are the ones that are going to create the jobs that we can't even imagine. And so if we could create AI, those kids could create the jobs of tomorrow. And that's the link. And I thank you guys for acknowledging our work and my kids' dedication. Thank you guys so much.
We gonna keep demanding justice. A message to Black America. Don't expect nobody to open the door for you. Can't wait for the leaders to make it better. We have to make it better. It's quite an honor to be with you tonight. And you know, Adrian, how much I admire you and your resilience. I want to tell you one quick thing. The first time I had lunch with Adrian, she came in wearing red, you know, and she's so beautiful and dramatic. And I just made a comment that I just didn't have the nerve to wear red. And at the end of the lunch at the Hay Adams in Washington, just as she stepped into her car, she turned around and she said to me, "Give red a try." And soon afterwards, I found in my dressing room at the theater a very, very beautiful burgundy scarf as a way to introduce me to the courage to wear red. And based on how she said that, I start every semester that I teach saying to my students, confidence is overrated. Give doubt a try. I've been artist in residence in a lot of different places, from MTV networks to Grace Cathedral in San Francisco, but I've never had the opportunity to be in the company of such a global reach as this room and the Atlantic Council. And I want to congratulate all of the global citizens for your honor tonight and to thank you for the work that you do. I'm very excited about working with Fred Kemp and Kathy McLeod and Robert Pullen. Just the notion that you are going to affect 1 billion people by 2030. Stories of resilience, resilience of the earth, resilience of good things like peace, resilience of bad things like war, resilience of good things like health, resilience of bad things like disease. I'm sitting next to Mitch Landrieu tonight, the former mayor of New Orleans, a city that was pretty much left for dead. There's a lot to learn about how we as humans have faced the challenges that threaten us in the past, the challenges of now, and how we will face the challenges of tomorrow. It's a great gift to be here tonight and to be working with you, Adrian. Thank you so very much.
You shut me down, you like the control. You speak to me like I'm a child. Try to hold it down, I know the answer. I can shake it off and you feel threatened by me. I try to play it nice, but don't kill my vibe.
And I would like to start by thanking the Atlantic Council for the award and Dr. Schwab for his generous introduction. I'm not sure that everybody in my home political life would adhere to everything, We still have an opposition, so it's could be different. And I'm humbled to join the ranks of prominent women and men who have received this award before me. And I like also to start by congratulating also President Macri of Argentina, who is well-deserved award that will come, but I have the possibility to do it now. And also to add my voice to the chorus of appreciation of the late Senator John McCain. He is a true global citizen. In recent years, globalization has come under pressure, and we should not be surprised. Globalization has been beneficial to our societies, but we have to recognize that it has not been equally beneficial to all. And this is a very real challenge. The divisions that we are now seeing between global and local concerns worry me. It does, as does the way that they are being used to drive political wedges between groups in many societies, to pit parts of the population against a perceived elite, and to challenge values and democratic institutions is a way that, in the past, would have been beyond reproach. To question even basic human rights. In the face of these new trends, you might think that the golden days of globalization are behind us. But in fact, we are more connected and we are more interdependent now than ever. Products, services, ideas, talent are flowing across borders like never before. Our way of life and our prosperity are profoundly affected by the global nature of our societies. So what does it mean then to be a global citizen? In our digital age, we often hear that we are all members of the global village. And I would like to take the image of the global village and apply it to what I believe in. In a village, you cannot survive without trusting your fellow people, without joining forces in everyday life. These are the kind of principles that have shaped modern Norway. To me, they also embody the very essence of being a global citizen. A global citizen is someone who understands the importance of cohesion and cooperation, who understands how crucial multilateral organizations and institutions are as tools for saving ourselves, and who appreciates how much we rely on a strong and effective UN, on a World Trade Organization that can ensure free and regulated markets, on a European Union that which former foes pulls together in an effort to address common challenges, and on a NATO that can deter and defend against threats to its members. I am sure that in certain circles, the Global Citizen Award could be considered an assault. Something contrary to local or national interests. I beg to differ. A strong global engagement is vital for the future security, prosperity, and the welfare of the Norwegian I am elected to help. On the ruins of two devastating world wars and under US leadership, we built a rule-based world order that has served us well over the last 70 years. An interconnected world is not a figure of speech, it's a reality, and it still needs this world-based order, and I still hope that the US wants to lead. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Majesty, for your kind words, but mostly thank you for your grace and your strength as you engage in the world, care passionately about your country, but also help shape the values and contributions that we each make every day towards bringing better peace and harmony to the world. Thank you for your leadership, Your Majesty. And while I'm talking about extraordinary women, I have to highlight someone who just arrived and I haven't seen yet, but I'm told she is here. Someone who just came from a speech on women's empowerment and women's issues, which is why she was a little late, but someone who challenges me and inspires me every single day to do better and be better. My wife, Sophie Grégoire. Thank you, Sophie. It is my sincere pleasure to be here with you this evening, and it's a great privilege and honor to receive this award. I am deeply touched by it. When I was a boy, I was lucky enough to have the opportunity to meet quite a few world leaders while traveling with my dad. Something that struck me then, and still does today, is the reassuring humanity of those encounters. However great or powerful a leader may be, they are still just people. And the majority that I have met, I have to say with some gratitude, want to do what is right for their citizens and for the world. If that weren't the case, it would be a far grimmer world than it actually is. The challenge of leadership, indeed the very essence of it, is to fairly balance the competing interests of different groups of people who have at times quite different aims and needs. But sometimes events coalesce. There are times when our principal aims and needs become universal. And I believe we are living in such a time right now. Some might look at this council's half-century-old mission to promote cooperation across the Atlantic as the rarefied concern of elites, or an idealistic throwback to another century. Well, nothing could be further from the truth. We live in a time where global peace and security, free and fair trade, human rights and liberty have never been more intertwined, or in this post-war era, at greater risk and in greater need of our active, focused engagement. Alliances that have underpinned global security and prosperity since 1945 are being put to the test. And the urgency of the challenges we share in common, climate change and drought, income inequality, violent extremism, civil war, and the mass migrations that result, continues to grow. Worldwide, the long-established international order is being tested. With Russia's illegal annexation of Crimea and encroachment in Ukraine, we have seen the first major territorial seizure in Europe since the Second World War. This is not the time for retrenchment. It is a time for the Atlantic democracies to renew our commitment to universal standards of rights and liberty, enforced through a multilateral, rules-based order that has promoted peace and stability and stood the test of time. The thing we begin to realize when we appreciate that all leaders are human is that nothing is guaranteed. That the global order that our grandparents and parents built isn't cast in stone. It can change, for the worse, or, as I prefer to think, for the better. But in order for this to happen, our definition of what constitutes leadership, or who gets to be a leader needs to broaden. Every person here is a leader. Every citizen, in the choices they make, the things they choose to say or to not say, to do or not do, to teach their kids or not teach, is a leader. It's not just every vote that counts, it's every choice that counts. So I'll leave you with this. Let us be good leaders. Let us be the best leaders we can possibly be. Together, let's roll up our sleeves and let's get on with the tough, entirely achievable, vitally necessary work of leaving this world a better place than we found it. Our children and grandchildren deserve nothing less. Merci beaucoup.
I'm most grateful to the Atlantic Council for honoring me together with such a distinguished recipients of the award this evening, like Prime Minister Trudeau and President Moon. Amazing speeches, was really inspiring. Music is a universal language. It opens doors, it inspires, connects hearts and peoples. Through this unique language, I have had great opportunities and experiences. I was 3 when I first started to play the piano. Over the years, I have had occasion to perform in different parts of the world and have come to realize the power and magic of music. I have been extremely fortunate to have met wonderful people in my life who have directed me and advised me on how to give back to society the same opportunities that I had. In 2008, I established the Lang Lang International Music Foundation. Through this foundation, we're nurturing the potential of future generations by providing opportunities to fulfill their dreams and aspirations. I have also been honored a few years ago by being appointed as Messenger of Peace of the United Nations. I know now it's a UN week. Yeah. In a world with numerous conflicts and natural disasters, I am heartened to know that through music, I can bring some relief and joy to the affected people and make a difference in their lives. Thank you all for your great support in art and music. And now I would like to introducing one of my scholars from my foundation, Amir, to the stage, and we will perform something for you to make this evening very special. I mean, already special.
Secretary of State, distinguished guest, Governor Ansman, President. It's an incredible emotion because I believe Atlantic Council is one of the most important and prestigious institutions. I believed until today because the decision to give this very important award to me is a signal of decline, but I think the future could change. Jokes apart, I'm really excited for this opportunity, and John, thank you so much for your time, for your words, for your great friendship, and obviously for Italy, United States of America, are not simply the best ally, but it's the best friend, it's the model, and our friendship is particularly important in this moment, but the decision to be with us tonight, it's an incredible gift for me and for all the Italian delegation. Global citizen. This is a time in which globalization means a lot of things. I believe incredible importance, the globalization for the alliance in the difficult theaters of war, in the difficult times. Globalization is a word we use every moment, every day, but globalization is also a message of fear in this moment for the new generation. And it's very strange because my father and my grandfather think the future, thinking about the future has a great moment, has a great possibility. In Europe, in this moment, the future is a message of fear, of preoccupation, of worry. So we have to change the perception of future. And globalization is the key to give a message of hope against the AIDS, a message of confidence against the preoccupation. Globalization means in Italy and in Europe, save the men and the women who risk the life in the sea, Mediterranean Sea. We can lose the votes, we can lose the point on the surveys, but we cannot lose the dignity of a human being. And this is particularly important in this moment. So, global citizen for me today means a lot of things. I believe for the future, for the new generations, global citizen is not an award, but it's a responsibility. I think the real challenge for the new generation, for the new leaders, is try to give the name to the future. With a leader as John Kerry and other people who support us day by day in the difficult theaters, we try to search the freedom in the trying, and we search really to give a name to the future of the world. Thank you so much. It's really a great privilege.
Ladies.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I am humbled to receive your Global Citizen Award. Am I a global citizen? I don't know. But I know I am a globe trotter. Since January 2013, I have flown a distance longer than the round trip between
Please welcome back Fred Kemp.
Greetings to you all. If you could all take your seats, please. If you could all take your seats. And now that you've taken your seats, if you could all rise in a standing ovation for the British Ambassador of the United States, Dame Karen Pierce.
Thank you, Fred. Thank you, everybody. It has been the honor of my life to represent the Queen in Washington, and before that at the UN, and before that in Afghanistan. I had not meant to be emotional, but you have collectively shown so much warmth, so much respect, and so much fellowship to the royal family in the United Kingdom today that I just wanted to say thank you, America. Thank you, Atlantic Council. Thank you for being the closest of allies. Thank you for recognizing the place the Queen holds, not just in our hearts, not just because of her friendship with America, and I'm going to include horses in that in case there's anyone from Kentucky, but also what she has represented in the world. When I looked at the Abbey, and I was much more composed looking at the Abbey at the embassy ceremony this morning, when I looked at the Abbey and saw all those world leaders who have been kind enough, gracious enough to come to the United Kingdom to pay their respects, and you suddenly realize what 7 decades really means. That's from Eisenhower to Biden. When you think of all the things that has happened, the Queen has not just been there at moments of national grief and national commemoration for the United Kingdom. She truly has represented the passage of time and history in one person. And as I looked at her funeral, that combination of the state on the one hand and its people on the other, paying tribute to a sovereign who'd been on the throne for 70 years, who'd been in the world for 70 years, who'd had impact in the world, in the Commonwealth, which she loved. I do not think we will see that like again. So I just wanted to say thank you, with apologies for intruding, but I wanted to say thank you very much to the Atlantic Council. Thank you enormously for those tributes to the Queen. As I say, I held it together until I saw those tributes when I hadn't expected to see them. It's the honour of my life to serve her. It will be the honour of my life to serve the new King. I am His Majesty's ambassador, but you are all our closest friends. You are our closest allies. And the Queen knew that, and she also knew her place in the system. When President Reagan came to the UK, she spoke not just of our common kinship and our common heritage, she spoke very eloquently, I think, of the common values which she described as being begun in the Magna Carta, but given vivid re-expression by the Founding Fathers. And I think that translation over centuries, and now we have the warmest of relationships in the special relationship. I think the Queen would be very moved, I think the royal family will be very moved to know of your tribute tonight, but I think the greatest service we can do to her memory and those of the presidents she's met are to continue this network of democratic values, this sense that we make a choice, we choose freedom, we choose consensus, we choose open debate. Those are the words that she herself used, alongside her commitment to public service and duty, which King Charles has reiterated. I wanted to say thank you very much to our American friends and to the Atlantic Council. Thank you.
Madam Ambassador, thank you for that. We make a choice, we choose freedom. The relationships we have with these countries, with these ambassadors, with these ministries are deep. It's not tonight that we honor and we move on. It's we are devoted to this relationship, and the Atlantic Council and our staff every morning wakes up saying to itself, how can we improve the state of the world? Saying to itself, how can we be relevant in these trying times? So I'm just really moved by the ministers of Norway and Finland and Sweden, and now the ambassador of the UK. And we're going to move on now to a new relationship that we're forming with Indonesia, which I'm really excited about. We opened this evening with Some Enchanted Evening. You probably noticed that we moved on to Dreaming the Impossible Dream. First debuted on Broadway in 1965, when the Atlantic Council was in its infancy, having been created only 4 years prior. And we didn't know where NATO would go. We didn't know where the European Union would go. We didn't know where our community of values and democracies globally would go. But we've come a long way. Nearly 60 years later, the Atlantic Council is more global than ever before, with more staff, more impact, and more resources to conduct our critically important work around the world, thanks to all of you. When I talk about our work, I love quoting the cultural anthropologist Margaret Mead, who said, quote, "Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has." And that's how we think about the Atlantic Council and our community. And with that, I'd like to salute our Global Citizen Awards co-chairs for tonight. I'm delighted to say it's a long list. I'm going to ask those that I named to stand and remain standing as I call their names. And then I'd be delighted if the audience can hold its applause as I call out these names, though sometimes we found that difficult for the audience, but we will do that. So here are the co-chairs for this evening. Adrian Arsht. Google. I told you the holding of applause was going to be hard. Lippo Group, represented by John Riyadi. Robert J. Abernathy. Amit M. Oren. Air Products, represented by Safi Kasemi. African Rainbow Minerals, represented by Patrice Motsepe. Atlas Technologies, represented by Guang Yang. Blackstone, represented by Stephen A. Schwarzman. Teresa Carlson and Andre Pinar. The Chopivsky Family Foundation, represented by George Chopivsky. First Eastern Investment Group, represented by Victor Chu. The Edelman, represented by Richard Edelman. Eddie, represented tonight by Marco Margheri. Ambassador C. Boyden Gray. HIF Global, represented by Meg Gentle. Hunt Consolidated, represented by Hunter Hunt. Curl Plus, represented by Alexander V. Mirchev. Laurel Strategies, represented by Alan H. Fleischman and Daphne Tapiero. Alan, I would have expected a larger round of applause from your table. Lockheed Martin, represented tonight by Catherine Wilbarger and Laura Brent. George and Kristen Lund. Majid Al-Futam, represented by Alam Bajani. MAPA Group, represented by Mehmet Nazif Gunal. William Marin. Penguin Random House, represented by Marcus Dola. Richard Atias Associates, represented by Richard and Cecilia Atias. S&P Global, represented by Douglas L. Peterson. Saab, represented by Mikkel Johansson. SICPA, represented by Philippe Amon. SK Group, represented by Chairman Tae-Won Che. Nader Tavokoli. And then finally, Gaurav Srivastava. And so please join me in a huge round of applause for the co-chairs for tonight's dinner. I'm also delighted to announce we are a place that turns on a dime, gets things done. I'm also delighted to announce that thanks to Gaurav Srivastava's support, and also that of General Wes Clark, a member of our board, former Supreme Allied Commander Europe, and the Indonesian Ministry of Defense and Minister Prabowo, and the coordinating Minister for Maritime Affairs and Investment, Minister Lahut, who is here tonight. We will be hosting an international conference on food security alongside the G20 in Bali in November. So thanks to all of you for being our supporters and our partners in this new endeavor. I want to do a special salute to two people, one of whom you're going to hear from very soon, but one of whom you've heard from already. First of all, Victor Chu, that tribute to Prime Minister Abe and to the Queen. They were both beautiful. But more than that, you are the founder of this dinner. We cooked up this idea back in, I think, 2010. Is that right? And so thank you for your vision. Thank you for your leadership of this. And of course, our inaugural awardee was Klaus Schwab, and he'll be out to introduce our next awardee soon. But join me in a round of applause for Victor Chu and Klaus Schwab. Because of Marcus Dola from Penguin Random House, you must take your gift bags home. You'll have tonight's books. We always want to send you home with books. Included are The Fifth Act, America's End in Afghanistan by Elliot Ackerman. He's just a wonderful individual, a really heroic individual, fiction writer, and also a nonfiction writer, and very close to the Atlantic Council. And so read every word of it. And then you'll also have Leadership, 6 Studies in World Strategy by Henry Kissinger, our longest serving board member. So take home your gift bags. With that, I invite you to turn your attention to the screens as we salute our next awardee, President of Indonesia, Joko Widodo.
Melihat perkembangan dunia sampai sekarang ini, banyak hal yang harus kita lakukan bersama-sama. Pertama, kita harus memberikan harapan bahwa pandemi COVID-19 akan bisa tertangani dengan cepat, adil, dan merata. Kita tahu bahwa no one is safe until everyone is. Kita harus tetap serius melawan intoleransi, konflik, terorisme, dan perang. Perdamaian dalam keberagaman, jaminan hak perempuan, dan kelompok minoritas harus kita tegakkan.
Please welcome 2009 Atlantic Council Global Citizen Awardee and founder and executive chairman of the World Economic Forum, Professor Klaus Schwab.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's a great honor for me to introduce Joko Widodo, President of Indonesia, or as we know him in a more familiar way, Babak President Jokowi. Starting as a businessman and mayor of his home city, Jakarta, in 2005, President Jokowi entered politics with the aim to serve the people, to work for the people. As a mayor, he devoted himself to eradicating poverty and reducing crime, paying spontaneous visits to the population, particularly to poor neighborhoods and marketplaces, always ready to hear what the people have to say. His determination to serve people continued throughout his career as he became the governor of Jakarta and then the president of Indonesia in 2014. He was the first Indonesian president without military or elite political background, and his victory symbolized the victory of democracy in a country of over 17,000 islands, 300 ethnic groups, and 280 million people. Serving for the second time now, President Jokowi has worked tirelessly to accomplish socio-economic development in Indonesia by launching anti-corruption schemes, universal health care and education programs, and infrastructure development across the country. When I received the Global Citizen Award in 2010, the world had to manage its first systemic crisis after the financial collapse that occurred just before. The world mastered this crisis because there was still the need and the will for cooperation. President Widodo, you are confronted not only with one, but with multiple interrelated crises. And again, we all know those crises can only be resolved by common efforts of the global community. If we want to avoid the danger of global disintegration and fragmentation, the G20 meeting in November provides the world with possibly the last opportunity to demonstrate that ultimately we are all part of a common human destiny. To make this G20 summit a success, it needs a chair of extraordinary talent and capability, and someone who enjoys the trust of all parties involved. Mr. President, with your humble, visionary, and peace-pursuing leadership, we are in the best hands. Therefore, President Jokowi is not just the man of the people of Indonesia, but he is also the man who embodies the spirit of global cooperation, a catalyst for collective peace and prosperity. I am honored, on behalf of the Atlantic Council, to present this year's Distinguished Global Citizen Award to President Joko Widodo of Indonesia, and to receive the award in his stead, His Excellency Foreign Minister Retno Marsudi.
Well, Professor Swab, thank you very much for your very nice introduction. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, you have listened to the speech of my president. And I had promised to my president that my speech will be shorter than his speech. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it is a great honor for me to receive the Global Citizen Award 2022 from Atlantic Council on behalf of President Joko Widodo. As President Joko Widodo said, we need a new paradigm to build a peaceful, fair, and prosperous world, a paradigm of collaboration. Indonesia will be at the forefront in advocating this paradigm. In the world where pessimism abounds, Indonesia wants to inspire hope and confidence. In the world that is divided, Indonesia strives to become a bridge builder. And in the world full of challenges, Indonesia is determined to be part of solution. I do believe these are all traits of a global citizen, and wish us luck for the upcoming G20 summit in Bali, November this year. I thank you very much.
Terima kasih Prof. Klaus Schwab yang telah memperkenalkan saya. Terima kasih di Atlantic Council yang telah memberikan Global Citizens Award kepada saya. Award ini adalah untuk rakyat Indonesia yang telah bekerja keras bersama-sama menghadapi berbagai tantangan. Tantangan domestik kami hadapi sangat berat, sebagaimana banyak negara berkembang lainnya juga menghadapi hal yang sama. Tantangan global seperti perubahan iklim, krisis kesehatan, krisis pangan, krisis energi, dan krisis finansial juga menjadi agenda kebijakan prioritas kami. Semua ini butuh komitmen tinggi, serta butuh kebijakan yang akurat, yang terlaksana dengan baik. Sebagai Presiden, saya sangat dibantu oleh masyarakat Indonesia yang majemuk, yang damai, bersatu, dan bergotong royong dalam sistem politik yang demokratis. Saya dan pemerintah Indonesia terus berupaya untuk berperan aktif dalam mendorong kerjasama internasional yang memuliakan perdamaian dan kemakmuran bersama. Posisi Indonesia sebagai Presiden G20, kami manfaatkan untuk membangun arsitektur kesehatan global yang tangguh, serta pertumbuhan ekonomi yang inklusif dan berkelanjutan. Penghargaan Global Citizen Award ini sangat berarti bagi saya, tetapi yang lebih berarti adalah dunia yang damai, yang makmur, dan yang berkeadilan. Terima kasih.
In Ukraine, we worked with the government to rapidly deploy air raid alerts. To date, we have delivered hundreds of millions of alerts. In March, I was in Poland, where millions of Ukrainians have sought refuge. Warsaw's population has increased by nearly 20% as families host refugees in their homes, and schools welcome thousands of new students. Nearly every Google employee I spoke with was hosting someone. In countries around the world, Google Translate has been a crucial tool for newcomers and residents trying to communicate with one another. We are proud of how it's helping Ukrainians find a bit of hope and connection until they are able to return home again.
After having had the honor to introduce an extraordinary statesman in the political realm, I will now have the opportunity to introduce a great business statesman, Sundar Pichai. Many in the audience may know my special definition of leadership. Leadership comprises 5 dimensions: brain, soul, heart, muscles, and good nerves. And you, Sundar, are certainly one of the very few who excels in all of those 5 dimensions. Brain stands for professionalism, soul for mission and values, heart for passion and compassion, muscles for the capability to translate objectives into action. And finally, in the world of today, we all need good nerves to deal with its uncertainty and complexity. As far as brains is concerned, Sundar, your credentials on the professional level are certainly extraordinary. Growing up in Chennai and after your studies in India, you went on to receive a master's degree from Stanford University and an MBA from Wharton School. You joined Google as an employee in 2004 and became the CEO of Google in a little over 10 years, in 2015, and soon afterwards the CEO of Alphabet. I think this trajectory speaks for itself. And now, to your soul, or in other words, your compass, your vision, which has been at the core of the success of your company, making Alphabet one of the most valuable and successful companies in the world, and to be always at the forefront of technological progress and being a key enabler of digital transformation. As far as muscles are concerned, you have continuously achieved the ambitious objectives which you have set out, and you did so with good nerves, always remaining a low-key and modest person and serving as a conductor of a great team. But what really makes you a business statesman is that is your heart, your passion, and your compassion. And it has touched so many people around the world, inside and outside of your company. In response to the shock of Russia's brutal aggression against Ukraine, you immediately came to the help of the Ukrainian people. And you were personally involved. You helped to raise $50 million in donations, as well as provide practical help in the form of thousands of Chromebooks and learning platforms directly to Ukrainian high school students. You also continue to combat mis- and disinformation campaigns, which directly impacts the plight of the Ukrainian people. You were one of the first companies to apply the sanctions regime against Russia, while at the same time keeping Google Research Services open to allow Russians to remain in touch with global perspectives. Your engagement in Ukraine is just one demonstration of true corporate global citizenship, having the courage to speak out and act when fundamental values are violated and humanitarian engagement is needed. It gives me the great pleasure to hand over to you, Sundar Pichai, this Global Award, Citizen Award, as a shining example of how business can truly serve as a force for good.
Thank you, Klaus, for the generous introduction and for your steadfast leadership of the World Economic Forum. I know our collective thoughts tonight are with the United Kingdom and all the people around the world mourning the passing of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. Her legacy of public service continues to be an inspiration to many of us. I also want to say a sincere thanks to Fred Kemp and the Atlantic Council for the important work you do to shape our global future. And of course, thank you for bringing us together tonight. We needed it after the pandemic. I'm truly humbled to receive this award. It's even more meaningful to receive it alongside such an accomplished group of honorees. Congratulations to all of you. Above all, tonight we are here to honor another group that deserves our focus. The people of Ukraine who continue to face unspeakable hardship and those working tirelessly to help them. People like Dmitry, an entrepreneur I met based in Kyiv. In 2021, Dmitry founded a startup to provide online mental health services. When the war began, he committed to offer mental health care to all Ukrainians, especially those who can't afford to pay for it. He's now reinvesting 100% of his profit towards that goal. Or people like Tomek, a Polish journalist who shares his passion for science through YouTube. Seeing the disruption the war was causing to kids' education, he worked with a teacher and interpreter to launch a new Ukrainian language science channel. It has meant that children forced to leave Ukraine could use YouTube to keep learning in Poland. I'm also thinking of 10-year-old Jana, who left Ukraine with her family and enrolled in school in Poland. With the help of Google Translate, she has made a new best friend despite the language barrier. Jana and her family are among the 7 million refugees from Ukraine in Europe today. The need is unprecedented, and so is the response. When I was in Warsaw last spring, I was struck by how many Google employees were hosting multiple families in their homes. That was typical in the region, and the generosity continues today. In the US, I'm inspired by the effort to welcome Ukrainian and Afghan newcomers. Again, it's led by everyday people who are stepping up to help. The private sector can scale these efforts and fill gaps with technical expertise, resourcing, and innovation. Google has long supported immigrants, dreamers, and refugees. Since 2015, Google has provided more than $45 million in grants and 30,000 hours of our employees' time to help refugees. We have also directly supported refugees and newcomers through our products. This is a cause that's embedded in Google's DNA, and it's one I care deeply about. More than 20 years ago, I immigrated to the US. When I arrived, I was met with open-mindedness, tolerance, and acceptance, all of which helped ease my path. Looking back on that period of my life, what I remember most are the people who made me feel welcome. Because of them, I started to feel as much a part of this country as I did growing up in India. It was my choice to come to the US. For refugees, it's often not a choice at all. That's why we need to work even harder to make sure they feel supported on their journey. The opportunity to help more people feel welcome is why I agreed to co-chair the CEO Council for Welcome.us. It's a nonprofit focused on welcoming Afghan and Ukrainian newcomers to the US. And the council is a broad base of businesses like Accenture, Amazon, Manpower Group, Pfizer, and more. Nazanin Nash, the CEO of Welcome.us, is with us tonight. We are focused on helping refugees with initial resettlement, matching people with jobs, and raising awareness via our megaphone as business leaders. The goal is to create solutions that can be repeated and scaled. It's especially important at a time when there are more than 100 million people displaced from their homes, a number that will only grow as the threats of climate change, food security, and economic uncertainty increase. As we build a global response, we have a responsibility to ensure people everywhere can benefit from the opportunities technology creates, be it creating the infrastructure that widens access, advancing technologies that can enable progress, or making sure the internet remains free, open, and safe for everyone. Across all of this work, it's important that we are actively addressing the challenges of disinformation, cyber attacks, and other harms. Equally, we must also remain optimistic about the power of technology to improve lives. I'm excited about the partnerships we have formed to do that across business, government, and civil society. And with the leadership of institutions like the Atlantic Council, those we'll create in the future. Look forward to working with you all to expand opportunities and help people feel welcome wherever they are. Thank you.
When I was a kid, the only way that I saw movies was from the backseat of my family's car to drive in. And it wasn't my reality to think I would be acting in movies. So receiving this honor tonight tells me that it's possible. It is possible for a kid from East Texas, raised in South Central LA and Carson, who believes in his dreams, commits himself to them with his heart, to touch them and to have them happen. To working with young women, young men around the world and developing their skills as peace leaders and community builders. These youths are our present and our future. You have all these qualities inside of you, and you have this connection to even be more powerful, to amplify the things you want to do for good.
Ladies and gentlemen, for our last award of the evening, please welcome Chairman and Chief Executive Officer of Verizon, Hans Vestberg.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I would like to congratulate all the recipients tonight. Fantastic achievements, a little bit extra for me, being from the Nordics, seeing that Sweden and Finland get a well-deserved prize tonight. Thank you very much, Sweden and Norway, and Finland. It's been a great evening so far, and thanks to the Atlantic Council for having us all here tonight to celebrate stewardship and responsible leadership. I'm extremely proud to be here with you tonight to introduce someone who you might know as the Oscar-winning role in The Last King of Scotland, or groundbreaking work in The Butler, or fan-favorite role as Shuri in Black Panther. But I don't know him that way. The man we're here to celebrate tonight, I know as my friend, as my colleague, as an activist bringing conflict resolution to areas of the world that need it most. Of course, by this point, you all know who I'm talking about, Forrest Whitaker. You see, I don't watch movies often. So when I met Forrest more than 10 years ago, I didn't know that he is one of the greatest actors of our time. I met him through his passion for peace and service to the most vulnerable in our society, and relentless determination to take actions around the world. That's the Forrest I know. Forrest has a gift. He uses his own experience, his own skills, and translates them into meaningful conflict resolution tactics. What started as a project 10 years ago with child soldiers in Uganda, inspired by his time taping The Last King of Scotland, became a worldwide non-profit organization called Whitaker Peace and Development Initiative, or WPDI. Stretching from Uganda and South Sudan to Gabon, Cameroon and Chad, Mexico, South Africa, and even the United States. It was founded on a vision to empower youth to become conflict mediators and community builders, all in pursuit of peace and sustainable development. WPDI, under Forrest's leadership, deliver concrete, scalable peacekeeping solutions that are sure to impact generations to come. I'm a Swede, as you can hear, who loves numbers. So let me quantify his impact so far. Over the last 10 years, WPDI has trained over 9,600 individuals, 60% of which are women, armed more than 180 schools with conflict resolution programming, supported over 300 businesses, engaged upward 32,400 participants, and benefited about 110,000 people through peace-building events, and hosted over 90 community dialogues in the community that needed the most. And Forrest, he's just starting. This is and more is why I know Forrest first as a humanitarian and one of the greatest peacekeepers of our time. I'm so proud to be a long-time board member of WPDI and to call Forrest Whitaker my friend. And WPDI's 10-year anniversary is something we're formally celebrating tomorrow night. I couldn't be more excited to honor the work Forrest has accomplished so far and to see what he do next. I wouldn't be doing my job as a board member if I didn't share that you can learn more about his work and support WPDI's mission on their website. Tomorrow is our biggest fundraiser of the year, and Forrest makes every dollar matter. Ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce the 2022 Global Citizen Award recipient, peacekeeper, worldwide humanitarian, special envoy for peace and reconciliation for UNESCO, and Oscar-winning actor, Forrest Whitaker.
Thank you all, and thank you everyone at the Atlantic Council. I'm honored and I'm humbled to be with you. Honored to be standing beside such inspiring fellow honorees, and humbled to accept this award on behalf of the young peacemakers we work with at the Whitaker Peace and Development Initiative. 4 of these leaders join us here tonight. They've emerged from the grip of conflict to dedicate their lives to spreading peace. This award is for them and the staff that's here with us. Can you stand? Table 23. Our shared quest for peace. Today we see violence breaking out across the world, from South Sudan to Ukraine to countless areas that don't make it to the headlines. Stealing from young people their innocence and their lives. Amid global turmoil, our leaders call for peace. We all dream of peace. And yet tonight we have to ask the question, what is peace? Is it simply the absence of violence? Or does enduring peace require more than that? I learned the answer more than 15 years ago. I was speaking with an aid worker in Uganda who started a program to return former child soldiers to their families. The night before, he placed the first child back to his family. It should have been a cathartic event, a cathartic moment. Instead, the aid worker's eyes filled with tears. He explained that once the boy had returned home, he killed his 8-year-old sister. That boy had been removed from war, but he never knew peace. So the cycle of violence resumed. At the Whitaker Peace and Development Initiative, we have spent the past 10 years deep in the world's most conflict-ridden regions, exploring what true and enduring peace requires. We found that peace requires healing from trauma, learning to communicate productively with each other, meeting everybody's basic needs. And we found that peace requires the ability to aspire, ensuring all people can nurture peace about the futures that they want and believe that they can work to achieve them. This more complex understanding of peace requires so much more of us. Because if peace is nothing but the absence of violence, then we do our part simply by not joining in the fight. But once we see everything peace needs to flourish, we see that it's something that we can and must actively work towards together. We can seek to be like Simon from Uganda, former child soldier who escaped from the Lord's Resistance Army, built a thriving electronics business, and is now offering vocational training to orphans and street youth, so they too can aspire for better lives. We can seek to be like Michael from South Sudan, who, when soldiers militarized a school in his neighborhood, stood in front of a tank and explained how vital the school was to the community till the soldiers agreed to depart. We can seek to be like Victor from Mexico, who's here with us today. He created a business to grow nutritious foods, employing 300 families and feeding hundreds more. Then he used the proceeds from that to open an indigenous community center. No matter who you are, no matter where you are, you can help support efforts like these. When you see wrongdoings in your community, you can speak up. When all seems well in your community, you can stand up and work proactively to build peace for everyone. You can use your platforms to call attention to the issues you care about. You can start or join organizations that share your ideals and work to realize them. Simply spread compassion. Peace can begin with something as small as a smile or a kind word to someone who needs it. Because the peacemakers in this room and around the world remind us to truly achieve peace, it must be more than an ideal we lift up out from songs or wear as a pendant around our necks. Peace must be something that we build every day together. Thank you so much for this moment.
Ladies and gentlemen, once again, Fred Kemp.
So Forrest, thank you for those inspirational words. In fact, coming to close to the close of tonight's program, I want to quote you, Forrest. Quote, "Leadership is not about epic decisions, it's about choices we make in our daily lives." That is why we're here tonight, to celebrate people like Forrest Whitaker and our other honorees who have dedicated themselves and their life's work to improving the state of the world, doing something beyond what they have to do in their daily life, through the daily choices they make, as in the Forrest Whitaker quote, and sometimes through their epic decisions. So on behalf of the Atlantic Council, Forrest Whitaker, and all other honorees, thank you. To close tonight's evening, please join me in welcoming the star of Signature Theater's production in Washington, D.C. of The Color Purple, Nova Payton. Now, she's been getting rave reviews. Some are saying it's the best production they've ever seen of The Color Purple. She took her night off to bring herself up to New York to perform for us tonight to close this incredible evening. Thank you all for being here. Nova Payton, bring us home.
don't need you to love me. I don't need you to love. I got my sister. I can feel her now. She may not be here, but she's still mine. I know she still loves me. Got my children.